And then I'll invite Haley to share her screen while I give her a brief introduction. Haley Johnston is the project manager for Alaska Trails. She manages the Tongass Sustainable Trail Strategy. For the past year or so, Haley has managed that the Sustainable Trail Strategy project down in the Tongass. Throughout this work, she has had the opportunity to listen and learn from Southeast locals, land managers, business leaders, and Alaska Native people about the challenges of building and maintaining trail systems in Southeast. She's encouraged by the innovative solutions folks have developed to handle these changes and the passion that people have for their home, the Tongass, and their trails. And so I see that her presentation is loaded. Please take it away, Haley.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. And thanks to the folks who are tuning in today and anybody who's watching this in the future. As Steve mentioned, I'm the project manager for the Tongass National Forest Sustainable Trail Strategy, which is a mouthful. But I have kind of been describing it as my great Southeast listening tour. I get to learn from people who know far greater than I do about the trails in the Tongass and just how to build and maintain them. And I've learned a ton over the last year and a half. And I'm here today kind of to set the stage for some of the realities of what trails in Southeast have to contend with. And then after I kind of give us a brief introduction here, we'll hear from two actual experts. I would describe myself as an aficionado, but certainly not an expert of trails. And so later we'll be hearing from Bob Gert, and he will be discussing the trail program that he's participated with the Alaska Youth Stewards. And then we'll be hearing from Dave Scanlon from Eagle Crest Ski Resort and their mountain bike trail projects. So both of those gentlemen are going to have a lot more wisdom to share than I, but I thought I'd start us off and do a little stage setting, especially for folks who are perhaps zooming in not from Southeast, and just to kind of discuss some of the realities of trail building there. So as I mentioned, I'll be getting us started, then we'll hear from Bob, and then we'll hear from Dave. This is the bulk of my experience in Tongass has been both personal recreation, so hiking on trails, kayaking throughout Southeast, and then through this work with the Sustainable Trail Strategy. Last year, I had the opportunity to visit Prince of Wales, Cake, Hoonah, and Sitka. And this year we'll be in 4 new communities, which will be great to see their unique and interesting trail systems and challenges. Across Southeast, there are some unifying challenges, and then there are some specific challenges to certain locations. Some of those universal challenges that we've been seeing are weather related. I think everyone knows Southeast is a little bit more damp or a lot more damp than perhaps wherever you're zooming in from today if you're not from Southeast. There's a lot of moisture, there's a lot of humidity. There are big, beautiful, tall trees that when they get blown down in windstorms create just a catastrophic mess across trails at times. So they're handling some pretty intense weather challenges in Southeast. There's a high cost of building and maintaining trails in Southeast. And I think anyone who lives off the road system knows everything is just more expensive the further you get from Anchorage. So not just sourcing materials, but transporting a workforce, transporting those materials to work sites, just basic challenges of getting materials to work sites. I was on a call with Yakutat just 2 days ago, and the number of things that they have to barge to Yakutat to achieve a trails project is pretty mind-boggling, as opposed to someone in Fairbanks who might be able to just call up the local rock crusher and get them to crush whatever amount of rock they need. A rock crusher is getting barged to Yakutat or could be barged to Yakutat for a project. So in Southeast, there's kind of a surface type issue as well in some places. There's big, beautiful stands of timber, and some of those have beautiful trails throughout them that are lovely and are, on firm forest floor. And then there's also muskeg. And I talked to plenty of folks throughout the Sustainable Trail Strategy. I get to ask lots of questions like, where would you like to see a trail? And people are like, oh, we'd love it if there was a trail through that muskeg meadow. And just the logistics of building a trail in that substrate, super challenging and not something that folks all across the state have to deal with. And then if you tuned in this morning for the workforce, Zoom, or if you're interested in that topic at all. I think that's definitely a challenge in Southeast. It's pretty easy to recruit workforce in and around Anchorage, Fairbanks. There's abundant housing, transportation to work sites is easy, and there's just a larger population to pull from. And in these small Southeast communities, workforce can be a really big challenge. There's some understaffing at Ranger District offices, which is improving, which is awesome. It's been super encouraging to see that improvement over the past year. But there's a lack of a local workforce. And in some places, just like an inability to house a trail crew for a big project, say, if it's going to require more than 10 people, there might not even be housing available. So kind of some small town, remote, and weather related challenges that folks in Southeast are dealing with. And then there's the water specifically. These are some pictures of trails in Southeast. This is an actual trail on the left-hand side that I think is about 8 inches deep. When I was there, in the photograph on the right, you'll see the trail marker indicating that you want to proceed across this swamp. This was a pretty good, let's see if I can pop this up to full screen for you guys. Maybe not. But this is walking down a trail where the marsh swamp muskeg has decided to take that trail back. So the water is just a constant challenge for folks building trails down in Southeast. And what I keep saying when I'm down there is the Tongass wants it back. Like the forest is trying to take everything back. And you'll see it, just a couple years of no scrubbing of steps means that the lichen and the moss starts to take over, to a point that there's legitimate safety hazards in places. This lovely boardwalk in the middle that's on a pretty steep hillside is now covered in moss. These really slippery granite steps on the right-hand side that require a hand line. So yeah, the Tongass is verdant, it's alive, and it wants to reclaim pretty much every piece of non-Tongass timber that goes down, which has been beautiful to see, but is also a challenge, obviously, folks are working with. For comparison, this is a trail on Prince of Wales Island, and it's a beautiful trail. It's about 1 mile in length, but that entire mile is fully elevated boardwalk. Built in 2004. There's some sinkholes that are damaging sections of this newer trail. And that's because of the environment that it's built on. It's built on a mix of, forest floor, karst, and muskeg. And that karst topography, it's hollow, right? Like, so the sinkholes occur. Part of the challenge there's 98 inches of annual rainfall. And then part of the challenge of repairing this trail, it's a 2.5-hour drive from Craig, right? So if you have a trail crew that you want to get up there, if they're not staying right there to work on that trail, that's a 5-hour transportation day, right? So just additional challenges for the remoteness. And by comparison, this is a trail that Alaska Trails worked on outside of Anchorage, right? It's 1.5 miles. It's mostly dirt and gravel tread. We rebuilt it the last couple of years. And it's tundra and rock. I think most people in Southeast would imagine that a steep-ish trail of just bare dirt probably wouldn't make it long in that environment. Might be because there's only 17 inches of annual rain in Anchorage, which really helps with that drainage issue. And then it's a 1/2-hour drive from Anchorage. So for a trail crew to be based in Anchorage and get up there to work every day is super, super easy and not as much of a challenge. So I think there are some serious challenges in the Tongass. I think these are really valid reasons why the trail system in the Tongass has struggled for some years. It's not a criticism of any land manager or any trail builder. It's just more straight up more challenging. But there are some solutions. People are doing a really great job of building with appropriate materials, working on drainage in every which way that they can. But in the end, there's nothing that folks can truly do about the weather, but really innovative solutions and not necessarily high cost solutions. You saw that webbing across the boardwalks, like for traction, even when it's slippery. High cost of building materials. I was just talking about that Yakutat example. And one of the solutions that they might look at is reopening an old gravel pit so that they don't have to sling in bags of gravel from somewhere else with a helicopter. And then there's, a balance. They were chatting about how that might require a year of NEPA work to get those pits reopened. But that might in the end save them enough money that they could embark on a trail project. So lodging challenges. I've seen some really interesting solutions from folks across the forest so far, partnering with local businesses to house trail crew using bunk houses. I think that there's a lot of potential in Southeast because there is such great community support for, getting some community housing for trail crew workers. Even had a floating barge proposed as a housing option in a place where the brown bear population was going to be prohibitive to a youth crew camping and working on a trail. So some innovative ideas there for lodging. And then the lack of local workforce. I think youth programs are a huge part of that answer. And I'm really excited that Bob's going to talk about his work with youth up here next. Building that pipeline of talent. Likewise, vocational training programs. There's a great program getting revamped on Prince of Wales and throughout Southeast. I think workforce is really getting a keen look as folks are saying, we want to hire from our local communities. And then I think that's really going to reduce turnover all throughout Southeast. So that'll keep people coming back year after year and reduce those costs of hiring and those challenges to actually building a full trail crew. So these are some of the kind of systemic forest-wide, Southeast-wide challenges that people are dealing with. Not to paint too bleak a picture, but it is a challenging environment that people are doing a really great job of responding to. And thankfully, we have two awesome speakers here today who are going to kind of detail how they've dealt with some of these challenges in their specific programs. So up next, we've got Bob Gert, who's going to give us a little bit of background on the youth program that he worked with, and then some details on how they've responded to some of the challenges of trail building in Southeast. Bob lives in Klawock, which is a small community on Prince of Wales Island. He's currently serving as the Rural Community Liaison for Sealaska Corp. And in that capacity, he's heavily involved with youth crews during the summer months as a mentor, planner, and facilitator for various trail projects on native lands. Collaborating throughout these projects with various partner organizations in Southeast region. Since 2017, his involvement has been closely connected to the Training Rural Alaskan Youth Leaders and Stewards program. So that's been called TRAILS, if you've seen that program. And then that most recently came under the umbrella of the Alaska Youth Stewards, or AYS, if you've heard of that program. Bob's got a degree in forest engineering from Oregon State, and he's got vast experience in Southeast Alaskan conditions, using those skills since 1982. So he's got a deep well of understanding for trail projects and a lot of experience. So I am going to hand it over to Bob, and I'm going to stop sharing. Bob, are you all set for a screen share there?
I am.
Awesome. Well, welcome.
So thank you. Thank you, Haley, for the introduction. And I am wondering, when you mentioned the word, what was it? I think expert. I'm wondering if I'm truly an expert. You didn't say what I'm an expert in, so I guess that's good. Anyway, so thank you again for inviting me to this. By the way, I just know that this is after lunch, and my experiences in conferences, if you speak after lunch, boy, you better keep the attention of your audience. And so I hope I can do that. And I have some, I believe, interesting things to share. I believe photos tell a lot. They say a lot. And so I'm going to use primarily photos. And of course, as I share these photos with you today, I will share some narrative, of course. Anyways, you mentioned this, Haley. Sealaska is a partner and among many on Prince of Wales Island. I've been involved with Alaska Youth Stewards, formerly called TRAILS, Training Rural Alaskan Youth Leaders and Students, since 2017. And I'm very passionate about the program. I love mentoring and planning and being involved with young students. Typically our students are in high school. We've had a few that have been out of high school on the crew, but typically they're at high school age, and formidable. And anyway, I just really have enjoyed being a part of this, mentoring and bringing up young people and giving them exposure to the outdoors and exposure to what they might be involved in career-wise. So earlier this morning, I noticed that a lot of our partners were there. Ryan O'Shaughnessy and Elizabeth Thomas spoke from Tlingit and Haida, and then Laurel Stark from Spruce Root. So these are all folks that I've been working with and have experience with, and I've Ben Hugh was on there as well. So those, I haven't mentioned everybody probably. So just a shout out to all of those folks that have worked with me as partners. Anyway, when I looked at the panel description, folks, I noticed some words that stuck out to me, and one was cost of materials. That's a big one. Another one is remoteness. That's a big one on Prince of Wales Island. It is an island, and a lot of country out there that I call remote. And even Klawock, some people in their estimation, where I live here on what's traditionally Heenyuquan land, some people would call that remote. But anyway, and then the other term that really caught my attention was clever solutions. So I'm hoping that you find some of these solutions that I want to show you today have been, or at least so to speak, clever, maybe not so clever, but nonetheless. Here we go. Can I just ask, does everybody see these okay? Guess you could just give me a thumbs up or something so I know that.
We can't
You
see it. You
too?
might want
Yeah,
to
looks great.
to presentation mode.
What's that?
You might want to go to presentation mode. We can see them all. It'll just appear a little bit bigger for the viewers.
Let's see. Where is that?
Slideshow. Go to the slideshow.
Where do I find that? Obviously, I'm not an expert at this.
Top center,
Huh?
top center, slideshow.
Top center slideshow. I'm not seeing it.
There's slideshow on the top toolbar, but I think you can also at the very bottom, you see how there's a slider from negative to plus. Just to the left of that, there's like a little presentation icon. I think if you click on that, that'll take you to the slideshow. Oh
No.
boy. Whoa,
That's not it.
that's not it.
Yeah, if you go back, it's right at the top bar and it says slideshow and it will show your slides properly. Show taskbar, yeah.
I don't know who Suzanne is, but thanks for being our tech help, Suzanne.
Yeah.
Boy.
Well,
I mean,
exit out of where you are, just hit the exit and then go back to your slides. Okay.
That's awful.
You know, at the top, it says end slideshow. Try that. Well,
Elizabeth said she was nervous. Now I'm more nervous than she was.
Yeah, click on end slideshow right there next to your cursor, Bob. Maybe.
I'm not even seeing that, to be honest with you.
Huh, I
you're-
wonder if
you're
it,
just above display settings, your arrow, and you go just to the right to end slideshow. Where are you now?
You know what? I'm going to get out of share screen. Maybe that's what I need to do.
Yeah, that'll work.
Wow. I'm having so much trouble here.
hey, Bob, I got an idea. Can I be your Vanna White?
There we go.
Can you see that?
Yeah, I told Haley I made a couple changes here, but that's okay.
Oh, is that all right?
Huh? Yeah, no, that's okay.
Great.
I switched a couple slides, but when we get there, I'll just tell you what I did. So go ahead and go to the next slide. I apologize, everybody.
No
So
worries.
anyway, by the way, this is Sean Mary, and he was on the crew, 2017, the Trails crew. We didn't have the term AYS, Alaska Youth Stewards, back then, but anyway, he's smiling over this culvert installation, which he helped, of course, work on. But anyway, I want to talk about, as it says there, the managing of the abundance of water. You already talked about this, Haley. When, the amount of rainfall we get here, and you're right, I think Klawock gets about an average, this is an average now, of about 100 inches a year. But listen, on the island here, depending on where you're at, it's not uncommon to get over 200 inches. And so I joke with people that come here, especially if they're not familiar with Southeast necessarily, and they ask me how much rainfall we get. And I say, well, we measure it in fathoms. And so, we get at least, 2 fathoms, and it's not unheard of to get 3 fathoms. And so if you understand what a fathom is, that's a lot of water. So I'm going to focus on what I want to focus on anyway, is these clever solutions that help manage water. Haley's talked about water. We get a lot of water. Boy, does it rain a lot. And so to do that, go ahead to the next slide. I want to use resources. I want to find them and use them in projects that are these 3 things: low budget, accessible, and practical. Now, in my other slide that I edited, Haley, what I did is I reversed the order of these and I put practical, accessible, and low budget. And the reason I did that is the first letter of all of those items spell PAL, P-A-L. And so if I can find resources that meet all of those objectives, they become my friend. They become my pal in managing, water and managing projects on Prince Wills Island. So, by the way, all of these solutions I'm going to share with you today, these are some things that we have tried and implemented just thus far on Sealaska land, in other words, native lands, and we had the permission to do so. So, there might be some difference in what I would say, design standards. Maybe they don't meet the design standards in some respects for example, on federal and whatever. But anyway, I'm just hoping that these ideas can be used more broadly that I share with you today, because I do think they're creative and I think they're low budget and accessible and practical. So go ahead to the next slide. Yeah, there you go. So one of the benefits, if you will, is that we have a sawmill on Prince Wills Island right here in Quawk. It's about a mile from my office. It's Viking lumber sawmill, and they end up creating a lot of chips. So that's a big pile in the background there of, I'm not sure if it's hemlock and spruce or a combination of those chips. But in the foreground on the left, if you can tell that those wood chips are darker and those are red cedar chips. And so those become really, really handy for use in trail projects. And I don't know if anyone that's listening today has used wood chips on trail projects, but listen, I'm finding that they're very, very handy. And again, they meet those three qualifications. They're low budget, they're accessible, at least for me and for our projects, and they're practical. So go ahead to the next slide. And all I do here is show a close up of the red cedar there. And you can see some of those are nice sized chips. And what's nice about red cedar chips, the crew can carry them in 5-gallon buckets. They can get a 5-gallon bucket in each hand, and to carry them long distances isn't too difficult. And of course, there's other ways to get there, as you know, motorized wheelbarrows and what have you. But it's just nice to have something that's lighter than gravel to be carrying by hand, because a lot of times our students are carrying things by hand. So this, as I said, this meets all those three objectives, those categories of practical and accessible and low budget. And by the way, I'll go to the next slide, Haley. We can get a load, and I show a load there on the right. It's been dumped at one of the sites for a 1-ton pickup with sideboards on it, costs $15. So that is low budget. That is low budget, and I'm trying to work out an agreement with the sawmill this year to just donate it. You know what I mean? They have a tough time getting rid of it anyway, so just donate it. But anyway, it's low budget. And then on the left side, you can see on one of our trails, by the way, this is what we call the Swan Song Trail. It's on Sealaska land. It's about 10 miles out of town here out of Quawk. And we started this construction on this in 2017, and we've been making improvements and maintenance on it every year since, at least every year that the AYS crew has been working. And we had a year where we were dormant because of COVID. That was probably the case for some other programs, but anyway, in place. And so that section there that you see on the left, when the trail was first built, and this is just a foot trail, it's on pretty level ground, easy walking. Obviously, it's not retrofit for wheelchairs or anything like that, but it is a very easy trail. But that section in the first year or two wasn't muddy, but at overuse, an overuse over the fall and winter and spring months, it became muddy. And so that can happen pretty readily in a lot of places on trails in Southeast we're discovering. So we last year implemented these chips, these red cedar chips, and man, that's just a fantastic solution. The chips soak up water, and they'll continue to do that. And of course, you can add more chips, add to the depth later on if you need to. So this was the first time we've tried this, was last year in 2021. Okay, go to the next slide. So we have, this is the same trail, this is another section or other sections on the trail. And we have instructed the students to use varied depths. Obviously, you know, if it's not too damp and it's a section that maybe doesn't need as much, then they don't have to put as much. So you see some varied depth there. And anyway, so that has turned out to be pretty valuable. And again, using the PAL acronym, very, very helpful. So these conditions, of course, change. You know, the existing conditions change. And so these two sections here, this is after this last winter. I went back this spring and I've already taken photos. These are fairly recent photos. And the reason I'm pointing out with the red arrows is to show you that with use, some of those areas, even though they've had chips, need to have some more chips placed. And so that's going to be easy to do this coming year with the AYS crew. And the remedy to that, I don't believe is going to take very long. It's probably going to happen in a day or something during the season. So again, this is the Swan Song Trail, 10 miles out of Kloa. Okay, Haley, go to the next slide. So I want to, that's chips. That's an example of my PAL. This is another example. This Pass Lake Trail was a Forest Service trail boardwalk. And Haley's already talked about this problem with water. You can see there was beaver activity. This boardwalk was nearly a quarter mile long. It was entirely a boardwalk on Forest Service land. And Pass Lake is, I'm going to say, about 35 miles out of Kloak. And in 2017, starting in 2017, the Forest Service wanted to decommission this trail. So we partnered with them to start that decommissioning process. So that meant completely, demobilizing all the materials, taking it apart, took a lot of tools, chainsaws. Of course, the students couldn't use chainsaws, but I'm trained with that. A couple of our crew leaders have been trained on chainsaw use, of course, for safety reasons. But we're talking about ratchet sets, pry bars, a quad to haul planks or tow them, back to the road where they could be loaded on a trailer. I mean, this was a big project. It actually took 2 summers to get all the planking out. And the reason I'm showing you this is we wanted to, as I said there, repurpose. We repurposed and built an inventory here right next to our office. We stacked that inventory of planking, and we're talking about planks even as large as 16 feet long. Those are treated planks. They're 2 inches by 10 inches. And very, very heavy, especially when some of them are more waterlogged and wet. So anyway, I'm going to let you do what you need to do, Haley. So, okay. Yeah, you can go ahead and stop there for now. So anyway, a big project. And, so when we speak of remoteness, this was a long way from any projects we wanted to repurpose and reuse planking. So it took several trips on some heavy duty trailers to haul all this planking off. And I want to bring up the issue of cost here, because if we had to purchase anything like this for trail work, listen, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars. And I mean that literally. So to be able to salvage this with the permission of the Forest Service was huge. And so we've been using these salvaged planking and 4x4s and anything else, because it's all treated, including some bolts. I mean, we've actually, salvaged the bolts that were holding some of this together for other trail work. And that is, we still have an inventory. We're going to continue using it this year. So we're very proud of that. And to reuse these materials like we have. So that, by the way, the crew that you saw in the last picture, you don't have to go back to it, Haley, but that was, okay, you can if you want to. We have partnered with this Student Conservation Association, SCA. And so that crew that year, SCA was a partner, probably still will partner from time to time here on the island, I'm not sure. But so we had a lot of the crew members there. The gal in the pink, she was the crew leader. Her name was Jenny, and she's instructing, and that's really, really hard work. So that arrow is pointing to one of the what we call stanchions, And those were really heavy and hard to take apart. So we just ended up taking them out of the ground and taking them as is. And we have actually used some of those, repurposed them for bridge abutments, small bridge abutments on trails. And I don't know if I'm going to show you an example of that or not in my slide. But anyway, again, really, really hard work. So you can get a sense from these students. By the way, this is just photos taken when they were unloading some of these planks at the job site at Swan Song Trail, which is, I'm going to say 50 miles away. So you can, the remoteness and the transportation over logging roads and what have you. So just to get those planks back to the place where we're going to reuse them was challenging. So the fellow on the on the right, Stephen, he was 21 years old, I think, when this was happening. So he was a stout young man, strong. But I'm telling you what, Yahira on the left, she's 17. She was a senior in high school, and you can tell that she's, that's a heavy plank, and someone's on the other end of it, by the way. But anyway, just gives you a sense of how difficult this is. So these are examples of how we repurposed. This canoe launch or kayak launch, excuse me, this is about 5 miles out of Klawock, and it's along the lake there. You can see it in the backdrop of the right-hand photo. You can see the lake out there. It doesn't really have a name. In fact, I've looked on the maps. It doesn't have a name. Some folks call it no name. We call it 5 Mile Lake because it's right along milepost 5 on the highway. So anyway, but this is something the crew built in 2018. And it provides safe access for kayak and canoe launch that was never there before. And I'm telling you what, personally, my wife and I have kayaks. We've actually used this now. We kayak on the lake. Some other folks do. Not only that, this last year we conducted kayak training for the AYS crew on the lake. And so we'll do that again this year probably. And so not only did the crew get to make it, but they get to make use of it for other purposes. I think that's a really cool thing to have. And then on this, by the way, this 5 Mile Lake Trail is eventually going to circumvent, at least that's the plan, circumvent this lake. It's going to go all the way around. It's not done yet. It's a work in progress. But here you can see, again, some of this repurposing of those planking. Short little water body crosses. There might be, bogs, mud holes, what have you. And this is just a really neat trail. And you can kind of see it's in a valley bottom. This is headed towards the mouth of the lake where the stream exits the lake. But anyway, again, just creative use. And again, those plankings are our pal. The bridge on the left is again on Swan Song Trail. That was built in 2017. More planking was added to the trail in another section. That's the one on the right. That was in last year, 2021, that was put. And the reason I have the arrows there, by the way, I don't know if you can see from your screens, folks, but those are the bolt holes. In other words, it really does show you these have been repurposed. There's evidence that they've been used before and for some other purpose. So again, just more examples, pretty obvious. Go ahead and stay there a second. Haley, the one on the left, that was done in 2018 because after use on the Swan Song Trail in 2017, that area was almost like a muskeg. It was like a little short section of bog. And the reason I'm pointing with arrows is that the level of that dropped about 6 to 8 inches. And it got really muddy and wet. And so, it wasn't like that the first year, but the second year, used the planking to, bring improvement. So trail improvements is a big deal, of course, going forward as well. I'm going to have you on all my presentations, Haley. Can you? All right, here's another example, folks, of my pal, or practical, accessible, and low budget. And so a lot of roads probably up and down the region, but certainly in Southeast Alaska, a lot of landowners are having to close roads. And when you do that, according to the Forest Resources and Practices Act, a lot of these water body crossings, the culverts have to be taken out. And so what do you do with those? Where do you put those? Well, this stockpile of used culverts taking out of roads that have been closed is just right outside of Craig, Alaska. It's a couple miles out of town, and Port St. Nicholas, for any of you who know that country. And it's on Shawn Seat land at least at the moment, and we have permission to salvage pieces of pipe for trail work. And so go ahead to the next slide. So these particular sections in that pile, we have earmarked for use this year. They're perfect length. They're not too large, and they're light. You can put them in the back of a pickup. The students can handle them easily. You can drag them with a four-wheeler up there if you have four-wheeler access, at least. And a lot of these places we do, because I'm just going to mention this. See, Alaska has a couple trails that what we're doing is we're repurposing old logging roads. I mean, old logging roads, they've grown up in alders or something, but they're actually, go to some really neat places. And so, they become quad accessible. Even we have one trail, I'm going to show it here in a minute, that the snowmobilers are using it every year, to get up into the Alpine. So anyway, there you have it. Again, our friend, our pal, low budget, accessible. They're accessible to me because I can drive right to the place here and get these, take them to the work site. And anyway, the next couple pictures shows you an example. The crew on the left, I believe that's the 2018 crew. You can see that's a road being repurposed. We call this the One Duke Trail that's kind of I don't know what you call it. Anyway, it's reminiscent of the One Duck Trail on Prince Wells Island, a very popular trail on Forest Service land. So this is the One Duke Trail. It's next to Duke Creek. And so you can just see a couple culvert installations there, short pipes, repurposed. And this is a very, very popular trail. I'm telling you what, deer hunters using it, snowmobilers are using it, hikers are using it. It's becoming very popular on Prince Wells Island. It's about just about 5.5 miles out of Kowal. And then listen, this is the last slide, and this is the same pipe and the same location that you saw Shawn in that first photo. So this is a recent photo, and it's really great because 5 years later, this thing is still functioning. Thankfully, it hasn't blown out yet. We've had some pipes that have, we've had to come back and provide maintenance and more rock and that kind of thing. But anyway, just some primary examples. Low budget. Things are accessible, the things you might not necessarily think of, but you can get creative in helping reduce the cost. And listen, that's really, really important. These programs, the Alaska Youth Service Program, historically has been grant funded. And so, to minimize your budget and the supplies used for the budget, these kinds of things are really, really important. So anyway, that's it. I want to thank you for giving me this time. Sorry about the technical difficulty, Haley and everyone. But anyway, on the next slide, I don't show it to you, but I can put it in the chat here after I'm done. My email and my phone number if you want to contact me for any reason.
Yeah, that'd be great, Bob, if you'll drop that in the chat if folks want to get in touch. We do have one question in the chat, if you don't mind, from Christopher Myrtle. He's wondering about how long you need, or how frequently you'd need to top dress with new chips when you're using them on trails. I know that's relatively new for you guys, but do you have an estimate of how often?
I do. And by the way, these chips are being used locally, by folks. They can get them for landscaping purposes and otherwise. And so we have done that at our own house. And one of the reasons we got this idea was because of that. And so they have lasted a long time. And so, red cedar, of course, is highly toxic. I'm going to use that word. And so it doesn't degrade or deteriorate and rot nearly as fast as, for example, hemlock would. So we're just using the red cedar for now. And I'm going to guess here, these are going to last a long time. They're going to last a decade. And you're going to have to keep going back and, with maintenance. And of course, as long as the sawmill is there and operating and the chips are available, we can do that. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, thanks for that, Bob. We've got some love for you in the chat too, if you get a chance to scroll through that before you take off today.
Okay.
From all across Southeast. I guess one other thing, just a little bit of curiosity on my part for AYS. Are you guys you are fielding a crew on Prince of Wales this
We
year?
are. We're just now in the planning stages. In fact, I've just recently to Elizabeth, and she's been on here. Laurel, I may have copied. I've put a budget together. We've got to, agree to it and discuss it amongst the partners. And because of this, the SAS funding that's come to a lot of folks here recently and there seems to be greater opportunity for funding and more partners. And so going to have several agreements, I think, tied into this year. But yes, we're going to have a program, probably going to plan to have a crew leader and 5 students. And a lot of that is tied to the size of our crew, our crew cab, because Sealaska, provides in-kind things like a truck, the fuel for the truck, housing for the crew leader, just some various things. And so, again, that's a part of being creative. And I think Ryan said it earlier. I agree with him. Collaboration and partnering is so critical. Listen, we can do so much better together in getting trails on the landscape. So.
Yeah, thanks so much, Bob. I think your whole presentation was illustrative of that, right? Like without a partnership, without a relationship with Viking, like you wouldn't get this very cheap material. Without a relationship with various landowners who are pulling out culverts, you wouldn't be able to do that. Without a relationship with the Forest Service, you wouldn't be able to salvage materials. So it seems very indicative of the fact that that's kind of the baseline for achieving success with projects, unless you want to spend 4 times as much money. Yeah, so thank you so much for your presentation. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. I'm sorry I'm not a Zoom expert. I thought I was, but apparently I'm not. So.
Well, we asked you to be here to be a trails expert, so you nailed that, which is great. I'm gonna start moving over to our next speaker, which is Dave Scanlon. He's the general manager of Eagle Crest Ski Area in Juneau, which is a community-owned and operated ski area with big mountain terrain. Since 2017, Dave has worked to expand Eagle Crest year-round offerings to residents and visitors, while maintaining and improving Eagle Crest fiscal health. Dave has worked with the community of Juneau as it looks to balance the impacts of tourism's rapid growth. And to that end, developing summer operations at Eagle Crest has been a solution for Juneau to grow responsibly, alleviate summer capacity concerns, and secure the ski area's future. Dave's deeply engaged in recreation and tourism communities in Juneau and beyond, and we're super grateful that he is here today to talk to us about their mountain bike program. Dave, are you ready to screen share?
I do believe so. Let's I can pull up my screen here and see how I do with my technology.
Nice.
Let's see, my bar is hiding my top screen here, so I probably can't see exactly where my slideshow is. Give me 1 second. We'll see if I can drag my bar down here so I can go to full screen mode.
Perfect. Yeah.
There we go. Okay. All right. Well, thanks so much, Haley, for asking me to join you all today and talk about our mountain biking and our beautiful trail projects up here at Eagle Crest. And just so thankful to be here in the community of Juneau, where we have so many trail enthusiasts, and just the amazing work that Ryan and Trail Mix crew are doing, and a very dedicated group of older trail enthusiasts and builders that are also mountain bikers that have helped us collaborate and come up with our mountain bike specific trail techniques, which are a little bit different because of the goals that we're trying to achieve and the style of trail we want to build. So as Haley mentioned, I'm just coming on my 5th year here, been in Juneau and running Eagle Crest since 2017. And in 2018, we hired a professional consulting firm, Gravity Logic. They're kind of the leading designers of gravity-oriented mountain bike trails, most times at ski areas or other areas where you can have shuttle access to gain up to the top of the mountain. So they were very much shocked at our ground conditions, and to Haley's point, the water and the muskeg, and they said this was one of the most challenging environments that they'd ever done an analysis for. And they did come up with some great design ideas, but left a slightly head scratching of what materials we could use to get a good durable trail surface in our environment. So in the summer of 2020, as we were all settling into life under the pandemic, I saw an opportunity as the city assembly was talking about how to provide employment opportunities for all of our unemployed summer tourism workers. And the city came up with this great program, our COVID Conservation Corps program. Ryan may have talked about it in some other sessions. So there was a lot of trail building dollars that got split between Eagle Crest, Trail Mix, and CBJ's Parks and Recreation Department. So this allowed us to test our theories on a bigger scale for developing some really high class durable trail surface. So during that summer, we constructed 3,700 feet of downhill mountain biking trails. We had 3 different segments of trails and tried to gear that in progressive difficulties of trails. So the lower down trail segment was really geared for your more beginner going into intermediate rider, more advanced trails in the midsection, and then some more technical trail features on the top section. So in that trail, we very feature oriented, built 4 wooden bridges over little waterways, 9 bigger jumps, 18 big raised, bermed or banked corners, and 13 rollers that people could jump or play on as they went down the trail. Oh, the rain. The summer of our construction, we had 40 inches of rain fall during our 2.5 or 3 month construction period. So we were challenged, lots of water control, lots of silt fence, and learned how to navigate on such a wet summer. But it was a great test case to see that, yeah, we can work through the rain and still put out a good product. So a very machinery intensive, the type of trails we're building, with all of these trail features that require a lot of material to create. So very large volume of rock that we use to harden the trail tread base and allow us to transit with machinery to bring more rock and material in for building these trail features. We were lucky enough to have an on-site rock source right on the mountain. So transportation time was quick and easy, relatively so. We didn't have to truck much stuff from out of town, and certainly didn't have to barge material in like other communities have to do. The original trail that was constructed at Eagle Crest was top coated with crushed D1 rock and mixed in with some 3/4 minus. And that proved to be, yes, it was durable, but it didn't quite have the rideability. It was loose and was hard to get to bind up. So we had experimented with a little reconstruction and tried using crushed up recycled asphalt that was left over from some of the city's repaving projects, and found that to be pretty interesting. It really bound up and made a good riding surface. So as we went into this bigger trail project, we were able to try this out on a much different scale. On the project, lots of machinery, different sizes of excavators and tracked rock hauling machinery, dump trucks, front end loaders, you name it. So very machinery intensive to build these types of trails. But what we found is the finished trail surface is so durable and smooth. And we joke around that coming out to ride after we've gotten an inch of rain during the day is kind of like a powder day. The trail actually rides better in the rain, which is good for Southeast Alaska. That's what we want. So go through some pictures here. A picture preparing our rock quarry up on the mountain. We've got some drill rigs up here. We did a big drill and shoot. We shot about 6,000 cubic yards of rock. We did a tighter blast pattern when we blew this quarry than you might do for other projects. So we were able to get a better mix of smaller material mixed in with bigger rock, which helped us with our trail tread design. Little picture here coming through one of our muskeg meadows. Since we had to haul so much material to build these jumps and these big, beautiful berms, requires moving a lot of material. So we, as we were constructing, our trail bed was actually quite wide, and we tried to harvest the top surface of the muskeg and stage it to the side of the trail tread. So once we had our drainage established on the uphill sides, we were controlling our water flows. As we were finishing the trail, the last thing we do was folding that muskeg layer back over the edges of the trail and bedding it back in. So the finished trail tread was much narrower than our working surface as we were traveling in and out of the different trail segments. Picture of our tracked Maruka. So this is one of our main rock hauling machines. This machine will haul around a yard of material per load. Great machine for bringing in, as you can see here, we've got our 55 series excavator spreading this shot rock. This is rock that came out of the quarry that we were just looking at. We ended up getting another tracked vehicle like this that can haul 5 yards. So kind of moving up in different sizes of machines. Here in this picture, some of Trail Mix's smaller little Yanmar tracked dumpers. Great for low profile trails where you might not need such a wide footprint. We employed these in different trail segments where we weren't needing to bring as much material in. And our different stages of material on the left here, we've got our shot rock piles staged to be loaded and our pile of recycled asphalt here. So we could come up with our different rigs that are hauling material, load them in and get them out into the trail. So one big advantage for us was having our mountain access road bisecting different trail segments. So it gave us a great access corridor to stage material, load material, and work out of in different trail segments. So one thing we've talked about as we've been brainstorming trails in Southeast is one thing that Bob was talking about is our logging road infrastructure. Could provide much the same core infrastructure that could really be leveraged for building more of these types of trails. So a little before and after here, our process coming in, shaping the muskeg. This is one of our smaller banked corners on our beginner section of trail, what it looks like before. And then afterwards, nicely shaped, nice smooth corner. This is our beginner, so not too tall, not too steep. And again, employing our wood chips as we had one of our logging companies were doing some hazard tree removal on our access road and needed a spot to dump their wood chips. And we much obliged them to that corner of the parking lot. So we were able to revegetate and put some of these wood chips in to give it a really nice look. Oh, the wet ground and moving machinery, live and die by timber mats. So as we're trying to get access, you can see our summer road in the background there, but then we need to cross and get into our trail tread that weaves through the forest. So we lay down these timber mats so we could walk our excavators and walk our tracked rock hauling vehicles over these timber mats. Then when we're done, the timber mats get pulled out and the revegetation isn't not nearly as much ground disturbance using these timber mats. Little picture here with this recycled asphalt. This is in process of compacting. Oh, and did we compact? One of the techniques we found with using this recycled asphalt, and the same thing for the D1 that we've worked with, is really lubricating the material and spraying it down and getting it really moist as we're using the plate compactor would really vibrate the smaller grains and shake the trail surface together and really bind it up. So we had a really good trail surface. So we'd really, typical technique, we would compact a certain trail segment probably 3 different times and letting it dry out and cure, re-lubricate it, compact it again, which left us with this is kind of our final product. These just beautiful swooping banked corners, as you can see here. We've got two more of those going down the trail that don't stand out quite as well, but a cool little drone shot here of what these look like when they're finished. And then a little photo of one of our jump features going into one of those big, beautiful berms. And we tried to build this so a lot of different ability levels can have fun on the same trail. So a lot of the bigger jumps you'll see here, we've got the ride around on the left-hand side, so you don't need to hit the jump. But if you want to hit the jump, sky's the limit. You can go and have some fun and get a little sporty with it. So trying to still make this rideable and give the mountain bikers in Juneau a taste of some well-formed jumps that they'll find when you're traveling around to other ski areas. Here, a picture of some of our little flowing berms. This was the first section that we tried our new technique on. It was a section of the original trail that didn't have the greatest flow to it. So we reshaped, redesigned it, and laid that recycled asphalt. So this is what the trail looks like after 3 years of riding and copious amounts of rain and snow and all the fluctuations of our summer to winter weather, and super durable. It's really held up. We're excited this summer to see, we're going to be going into the second summer of our big trail construction project, actually third summer of our big trail construction project, see how that's held up. But it's been proving itself to be really resilient and durable for our climate. This is our upper segment with our bigger jumps, some little gaps in here. And this is the last segment that we built that has some of our more expert trail features on there. And I think that was the last slide that I have. So stop sharing my screen here. Happy to take any questions that you guys might have.
Yeah, that's great, Dave. You've got a little bit of love in the chat. Sounds like the flow trail is also really fun in wintertime, according to Chris Myrtle. So his kids are loving it.
Oh, the kids love it. It's, yeah, our bank slalom course in the winter. Yeah, it gets a regular traffic. Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. So you said you guys had hired a trail design company from out of state initially, but then you guys are the ones that came up with the surfacing idea with the crushed asphalt?
Yeah, it was some of our local guys that are big, passionate mountain trail builders were encouraging us to give it a shot. There was some skepticism, but really proved to be a good material for us to use. We've also experimented with using some rock crusher fines to sprinkle over some of the berms and features, and it really has a nice binding power to it on the top surface as well. We did use a lot of the basic trail design from the initial study that we had done, but two of my trail builders, Brian Studi and Kanan Basler, led the geometry and the designing and did just a great job putting it all together.
Awesome. Yeah. Looks like Steve's got a question for you. Steve?
Yeah, what's next? Are you building more trails? And yeah, what are your plans for the future?
Oh, yeah, great question. So super big project right now. The city assembly just allocated us a lot of funding. We're purchasing a used gondola from Austria.
Thanks.
More into summer development and summer activities. So really excited. I'm actually off to Austria on Monday to go and gondola and get it on the way. So the next year or two are probably gonna be focused on all the construction and getting that gondola in, which is gonna open us up opportunity to really keep going forward with ideally building a new trail every summer and getting ourselves a nice network of gravity fed downhill trails that could be serviced by the gondola and supported by our other more industrial summer cruise visitors, and let them help subsidize our more expensive mountain bike trail, help us have a nice financially sustainable world-class winter ski area.
Awesome. Love it. If anyone else has a question, feel free to chime in or pop it in the chat. I guess my other question is, getting the crushed asphalt, is that a partnership with the city or DOT? How are you sourcing that?
Yeah, thanks, Haley. That is a partnership with the city. So since we are a city department, our public department has been great working with us. So they usually every couple of years they'll go through and crush the stockpile that they have. So we're able to get that at a reduced rate and contributing to the crushing cost for the next round. And we do have some trucking costs, but thankfully we've got some contractors that are really passionate mountain bikers. So that always helps out as well.
Yeah.
Try to hold on to the PAL acronym, and use all of our friends to help us advance our causes.
Yeah, that's awesome. Man, I love that both Bob and Dave's presentations, your local materials have been kind of critical to your success, right? Bob's able to source stuff on island as opposed to having to go off of Prince of Wales to go get stuff and get it on a barge and pay, like that just makes a trail so much more expensive. And likewise, you being able to source from the city seems like a huge advantage to achieving some trail projects. So that's a nice through line for both of your projects. I loved hearing about that. There's lots more love for you in the chat. People missing you in Hope from your days up here.
Oh, I miss my Hope people. Many memories and fabulous people up there. So big hi to everybody up there in South Central.
Yeah, right on. Well, cool. Well, thanks so much, Dave. I really appreciate you taking the time. Bob, you as well. Thank you for sharing your expertise and your experience. And thank to both of you for making the trail ecosystem of Southeast just 10 times better just by being there and contributing. You're definitely pillars of your communities and of the recreation down there. So thanks a lot. I really appreciate you. And I am going to hand it back over to Steve. Steve, is there anything you want to tell the group before we take a break before the next session?
No, but I want to echo your thanks. Well, thanks to you, Haley, and thanks to Dave and Bob for presenting. It's again, just great to have folks from all over the state talking about great trail projects and innovative ways to get them done and to extend the resources that are local and the trails that are awesome. So well done, and thanks again. And we'll see everybody back here at 2:30 for our final presentation of the Trails Conference. And in case you want to share some of this stuff with your friends or colleagues, we'll have the presentation posted on our website soon, and look forward to seeing you back here at 2:30.
Thanks
Thanks
Steve.
again, everybody.
Thanks,
Take care.
Dave.